Welcome to World Inheritance. Today we will talk about the pharaoh Tutankhamun. Who is Tutankhamun? He is one of the pharaohs of the 18th Egyptian dynasty in the history of ancient Egypt, and he was the pharaoh of Egypt from 1334 BC to 1325 BC. He is the one who. He assumed the rule of Egypt at the beginning of his second decade, after his father, King Akhenaten, died in mysterious circumstances. Turmoil arose in the land of Egypt and in the royal palace, and chaos spread throughout the country due to Akhenaten changing the official religion of Egypt from the worship of multiple gods to the worship of only one god, Aten. The Egyptian people were angry about this, and after his death, they destroyed many of his statues and monuments that were built during his reign. This change led to a major religious revolution, with many priests and nobles opposing the change. This led to internal conflicts and shook the stability of the kingdom. 2. Akhenaten's focus on the new religion at the expense of other state affairs. This led to deteriorating relations with foreign countries, a weak army, and widespread corruption. 3. During the reign of Akhenaten, Egypt was exposed to a number of natural disasters, such as drought and floods. These disasters exacerbated economic and social crises. 4. Some historians believe that Akhenaten was a weak figure and unable to rule Egypt. This led to some nobles and priests taking advantage of his weakness, worsening the chaos. 5. Akhenaten moved the capital from Thebes to a new city he built at Tel El Amarna. This led to the discontent of many people, who considered Thebes to be the legitimate capital of Egypt. This led to chaos, the deterioration of the Egyptian economy, and the weakness of the army. And Egypt lost some of its lands in Syria and Palestine. After Akhenaten's death, Egypt returned to worshipping multiple gods, and the throne was transferred to Tutankhamun, Akhenaten's son from his second wife, who gave birth to 2 sons. Tutankhaten, a 9-year-old son, became king on the throne of Egypt in difficult circumstances. Tutankhaten, which means the living image of Aten, married his sister, Princess Akhenaten, the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, the first wife of Akhenaten. She did this to ensure that the throne would not slip from her hands. After Pharaoh Tut sat on the throne of Egypt, one of the conditions was that his name be changed to Tutankhamun. This is his recognition of the official god of the Egyptians, Amun, who is respected. This led to him changing his name to Tutankhamun, or the living image of Amun. His wife's name was changed to Amun, and Tutankhamun left Amarna. Tutankhamun returned to the traditional capital, Thebes, and ruled the country from the ancient administrative capital, Memphis. The army commander, Horemheb, began with energy, and enthusiasm a major campaign to destroy the monuments of Akhenaten and his most famous god, Aten. Under the pressure of coercion, Tutankhamun began a policy of restoring what his father Akhenaten had destroyed. Tutankhamun restored the worship of the god Amun, the main god in ancient Egypt. He was assisted by Tut, the priest who assumed power after the death of Pharaoh Tut. This helped restore religious and social stability in Egypt. Tutankhamun repaired temples that had been damaged during Akhenaten's revolt. This helped revive ancient Egyptian religion. Tutankhamun restored relations with foreign countries that had been damaged during Akhenaten's reign. This helped improve the Egyptian economy. Tutankhamun built many palaces in Egypt. This helped show the wealth and power of Egypt. Tutankhamun preserved ancient Egyptian cultural legacies. This helped pass these legacies on to subsequent generations. Tutankhamun ruled for a short period, about 9 or 10 years, and died at an early age. Therefore, he was unable to achieve many achievements. But his achievements were important in restoring stability to Egypt after Akhenaten's revolution. He restored the status of the other gods and their priests, and the Golden Pharaoh was not destined to have a male heir born to him who would inherit the throne of his great fathers and grandfathers. Throughout his reign, Thebes remained a place of rule after he transferred to it from Akhenaten. Despite the bickering between the leader Horemheb and the priest over the king, they began to work together ostensibly, and each of them was ambitious to assume the throne after Tutankhamun, according to what Dr. Salim Hassan mentioned in his Encyclopedia of Ancient Egypt, and she was calm. The game is finally in the hands of the leader Horemheb, who controlled the affairs of the state and dominated every facility inside and outside the country. As for the cause of Tutankhamun's death, There is no consensus among historians about the cause of Tutankhamun's early death. Egyptian lore says that Tut was on a hunting trip and was riding a war chariot. It seems that the wheel of the chariot tripped on a rock and he fell on his left foot, causing a fracture and infection. It is likely that he died the next day after the fall, and those in the palace were forced to build a tomb for Pharaoh Tut quickly because the mummification period was 40 years to 70 days because no one expected him to die at a young age. Work on building the cemetery was quick, so the cemetery appears to have drawings not engraved on the walls and incomplete drawings. It is considered a poor cemetery in terms of construction and equipment, but it is the richest of the cemeteries in terms of the collectibles it contained, and some historians believe that Tutankhamun died of an illness, such as malaria or elephantiasis. There are those who believe that Tutankhamun died in battle. Or he may have been assassinated by Horemheb or someone else. Or some historians believe that Tutankhamun died due to a genetic defect. Consanguineous marriages may have resulted in sick children, which may have been the cause of his death. In 2022, a team of researchers published a study indicating that Tutankhamun may have died of malaria. However, it is important to mention that this study is not conclusive, and there are still many questions about Tutankhamun's death. After the death of King Tut, he took over. The 70-year-old ruling priest, Ai, is said to have married the great royal wife, the widow and half-sister of Tutankhamun, Akhenaten, in order to gain power. However, she did not live long after that. Ai then married T, who was originally Nefertiti's wet nurse. Ai's reign did not last long. His successor, Horemheb, was the commander of the army during the reign of Tutankhamun, and Pharaoh Ai may have wanted him to be his successor in the event of the death of his children, which is what happened. Horemheb may have taken the throne from Ai through a coup. Although Ai's son or stepson, Akhenaten, was chosen as crown prince, Akhenaten appears to have died during Ai's reign, leaving Horemheb the opportunity to claim the throne thereafter. Horemheb also passed away without any living children, after he appointed his minister, Ramesses, as his heir. This minister ascended the throne in 1292 BC as Ramesses I, and was the first pharaoh of the 19th dynasty. This is the story of the young pharaoh Tut, and finally, what was found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. 5,398 artifacts were found in the tomb of Pharaoh Tut in the Valley of the Kings, and Tut's tomb number was 62. It was complete without theft and contained many gold artifacts, as was Tutankhamun's mask. Its weight is 14 kilograms of pure gold, and the golden coffin in which the mummy was found weighs 111 kilograms of pure gold, so it is called the Golden Pharaoh. On November 4, 1922, when the British archaeologist and specialist in the history of ancient Egypt, Howard Carter, was excavating at the entrance to the tunnel leading to the tomb of Ramesses VI in the Valley of the Kings, he noticed the presence of a large vault and continued his careful exploration until he entered the room containing the tomb of Tutankhamun. He encountered difficulty in removing the third golden shroud that was covering the mummy of Tutankhamun from the mummy. Carter thought that exposing the shroud to the heat of the scorching Egyptian summer sun would be sufficient to separate the golden shroud from the mummy, but his attempts failed and he was finally forced to cut the golden shroud into two halves to reach the mummy. After removing the cloth shroud, Tutankhamun's mummy was found with all his adornments, including necklaces, rings, crowns, and staffs, all of which were made of pure gold. To remove these artifacts, the excavation team had to separate the skull and main bones